Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. This is Gabrielle Celeste, and I am so excited. I have been eyeing our guest probably since March of 2024 to come on the show, and it just felt like it was a conversation that needed to happen. So today we have Kyla Derkach of Hatha Astro on today. And we're so excited to have her on because she is going to speak to all things branding and human design related. And it really just feels like an important conversation to have that is kind of building on the series of human design that we have talked about on the show this last year. So feel free to go back and reference those previous episodes. But Kyla, welcome to the show. So excited to have you on, and thank you for coming on our show.
Thank you so much for having me here. I've been really excited to connect with you in this way, and I always love just speaking to others who have a solid knowledge of astrology and human design.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that. I receive, and I'm really excited to explore the ins and outs of astrology and human design and your background. But before we get into that, we like to ask our guests a series of a couple of questions. It's like kind of an icebreaker of sorts. And so the first question we like to ask is, what are your big three in astrology?
I'm a Scorpio rising, 0 degrees Aries sun, and a Sagittarius moon.
Ooh, she's spicy. Okay. How does that translate for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. How does that translate for you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think spiciness, boldness. I'm always kind of pushing boundaries, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be in my energy.
Totally. So I just want to echo that, because if you check out her Instagram page, so Hatha, Hatha Astro, Astro, you can really just see that like your branding, the imagery, how you're pushing the boundaries is very evident with just the imagery. And so we're definitely going to get into that, but I can totally see how your big three display through your work. So
I love that reflection.
Yeah. So what is your human design profile and makeup?
I'm a 2-5 Sacral Generator, right angle cross vessel of love, like Ooh. You.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, wait. So you're born in December. Your birthday's right? Soon?
No, I'm March 20th.
Aries. I'm sorry, yeah. Aries. Yeah, you just said that. Okay. The reason, because I'm studying incarnation crosses right now, and I actually picked up a book via Etsy that you recommended, and it's kind of fucking me up a little bit because like people have like right angles, or like specifically that incarnation cross that's based off of when they're born is how I understand it. But please correct me if I'm wrong, because you are totally the expert in the area of human design here. But yeah, it was kind of fucking me up because I'm like, oh, you have specific incarnation crosses based off of like birthdays is how I understand it.
Yeah. So there's basically right angle crosses and left angle crosses. And then there's the juxtaposition crosses. Mm-hmm. So juxtaposition crosses are like anybody with a 4-1 profile in human design, and right angle crosses are anybody where the first number of their profile is lower than the second number. So a 2-5 or a 2-4, for example, would be a right angle cross. And then left angle crosses are anybody who have their profile with the first number being higher than the second number. So a 5-1, for example, or a 6-2. So the difference is with right angle crosses, there's more of a personal karma. We're here to learn through our own self-actualization. Mm-hmm. And the people with left angle crosses are really here to learn through other people. They're really here to have an impact on the collective, and it's a little bit more transpersonal.
Yeah, okay, yes, it's all coming back to me. The right angle, I love that we share that in common, by the way, that we have that right angle going for us. But sometimes I feel like I'm like selfishly, like I'm like, you guys, this is brutal. Like, did I really ask for this chart? Because I totally believe we asked for the charts that we have in this lifetime and this specific astrology. And yeah, sometimes it just feels like a heavy weight to carry, even though it's like interpersonal, it's personally focused. So
Totally. Totally. I have questions like that all the time about my human design and astrology, specifically right now, really navigating a Venus Mars square in my chart. I have Mars in Taurus in the 7th house, and then I have Venus in Aquarius in the 4th house, and they're squaring each other. And then of course I'm a Aries North node and South node in Libra. So that Mars Venus interplay is so big for me. And I think that there's so many opportunities in the parts of our design that have a little bit of friction. It's like energy that can't be ignored, and we're really here to grow and learn and become wise through it. But sometimes it is like a derp, right?
Yeah. That's so. Yeah, we were just talking for our listeners out there off camera about just like the current transits, and we're definitely I'm gonna ask about kind of the landscape for 2025. So you can keep that in mind as the conversation progresses, because I would so appreciate your take on it. But with the transits that you just spoke to, you're kind of in it for a little bit, right? Until this retrograde passes.
Yeah. It's slow right now, but that's okay. I think that it's, and that's what's so wonderful about working with things like human design and astrology, because it allows us to really work smarter rather than harder, right? And when we know that there's going to be a crunchy period, or when we know there's going to be a really activating, expansive period, when we can really leverage that in our business, in our brand, it creates so much more flow. It's like energetic lube.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
Totally. Yeah. It's kind of like the roadmap energy, just to like how to navigate the tough times, for sure, with whatever the modality that is that you're working with. So I love that take on it. Thank you for sharing that. My next question would be, what are some of like the books that you're reading, podcasts that you're binging or listening to, or what kind of content are you taking in that you'd like to share?
Oh, I love this question. I'm reading a book right now on boundaries. I can't remember the name.
Okay.
It's a beautiful book on boundaries. And yeah, for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it. This has been really fun work for me as somebody with an undefined emotional solar plexus center. I think everybody who has undefined emotional solar plexus in their human design can benefit from some boundary work. I'm also like a really big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert's work. I'm reading Big Magic again. This is like the 4th time I've read it, and every time I do, I gain something new. I'm kind of one of those people that has like 10 different books on the go at one time. I'm just realizing. What else am I reading? I'm doing the Artist's Way process, which is really fun. It's a really, really kind of beautiful process. It's like there's reading, and then there's sort of activities that you do, and it just like helps you tap into your inner artist. So lots of like personal development work, I think, is what I'm mostly into. And then podcasts, I've been on a hiatus, and I think that's because I haven't been outside enough. Normally when I'm outside walking, hiking, doing things in nature, I listen to podcasts, but it's gotten really cold here, and I've taken up Soul Cycle. And so I haven't been outside as much. So I have been on a podcast hiatus, but I love yours.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I love everything you just mentioned in terms of the books that you're consuming right now too. I've mentioned Big Magic quite a bit on the podcast because I love the concept of her basically saying like ideas live in the ether, and they're wanting to be built out through humans in the 3D form. And if you don't act on that idea, like someone else is going to take it.
Yeah.
And that I think is so true. And I always love a good recommendation on boundaries because I have nothing but water in my chart, at least my big 3. And I don't know what boundaries are. So
yeah, definitely with the water signs and the mutability. I think when there's lots of mutable signs in our chart as well, like we can, just the more we can kind of learn about those things. And I think that schools should be teaching this stuff, but I think it's not common, right? That we're equipped with all of these tools as adults. And I think now more than ever, especially the millennial generation, we're inherently self-aware. And I think that things are really, really changing. And especially as we move into the new paradigm in 2027, people are just waking up to things like nervous system regulation, trauma, all of these big pieces, right? And I think it's find boundaries and find peace. I think that's the name. Create Boundaries and Find Peace, the book name.
Thank you.
Just came through my channel.
Perfect. So we'll have to check that book out. We'll link it in the show notes. Yeah, I was thinking of the millennials. So Pluto in Scorpio, like that's how you know you're a millennial. So if Pluto is in Scorpio in your chart, then you are said millennial. But I think, yeah, that's so true. Like millennials have really gone through it, and that's not to undermine or discredit the other populations and whatnot or the generational groups, but we've seen some shit for sure. And I certainly think that because we are inherently aware, the next generation, or at least our generation of children and those that are coming in the new paradigm and beyond, are just going to be better equipped than maybe we were. And we just kind of had to raw dog it and figure it out for ourselves. So.
Yeah, raw dog it is right.
Love that. Okay, so if you could work with any client who is living or dead, who would it be and why?
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a good question.
Oh, the next one's better, but I know the answer to it. I have a feeling.
If I could work with any client, Stevie Nicks.
Okay.
I would work with Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac. I would love to look at her charts and coach her on human design and astrology. And I feel like she'd be so here for it because she's a sister of the moon. I love Stevie Nicks. She's kind of my, I don't know, she's like my inspo for sure, my brand inspo.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what I thought your answer was going to be to the next one, and it very well could be. So my question is, if you could go to a concert of any artist living or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh, okay. So I've seen Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac multiple times, and it was amazing. Right now, I really want to. There's a deep house artist that I love, Ben Bomer, and I've been trying to find where he's playing and line it up with my schedule so I can go see him. It's weird. I have this like really eclectic taste in music. I'm like deep house or, classic rock. It's like this quite a dynamic, polarizing sense of musical taste.
I love that though, because I appreciate those who have an eclectic taste in music and artistry in general, because for me, what I found is they have alternative thought. They're very intelligent, and you can tell a lot about a person based off of their interest in music. So love that. Shout out to my sister Savannah, because she's been on the show before, and she has to be like top 5, top 3, maybe even top of the list, who has that has an eclectic taste in music. And she's also a Virgo Sun, Gemini Moon, Virgo rising. So I think that says a lot about her profile as well.
Wow, Mercury is in the house for her.
And her Virgo placements are in the 12th. So her sun's in the 12th and her Gemini moon's in the 10th. So I think there's a lot to be said about that too.
No kidding. That is a wild big 3 right there.
It really is.
What's her profile in human design? Now I need to know.
She might be a 2-4 Manny Jen.
I don't know why, but I'm having a sacral response to that. So I feel like you're right. I don't know her at all, but I just sense there's a 2 involved.
Totally. She's the easy breezy genius, whatever that is. So
yes. And the fact that her sun is in the 12th house, did you say?
She's a photographer too.
Yeah, so that 12th house placement is interesting with the second line placement. So there's this like sort of privacy and needing to retreat that's very, very present for her. I think that's wild to kind of have both of those placements in one individual. She needs to dip out from time to time without interruptions.
Savannah, circle back and let us know. Send Kyla a DM. So for that little mini reading, thank you for that insight. But yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Obviously knowing her. But Kyla, so excited for this. Okay, so we like to generally ask our guests their background, how they got into the work, what it is that they do. And I would love for you to share more about that, because I really feel like branding using human design is just where things are going.
I totally agree. So basically, do you want me to go back like before I started my business kind of thing? Or
you know what? I know this story and I fucking love the background and as to how you ended up in Spain and all the things. So yes, please.
Yeah. So I'm Canadian. I was born and raised in British Columbia, and I went to college, studied a degree in tourism management at Capilano University. And once I graduated, I got a job for a large wine import agency. It was pretty cool. We traveled all around the world, tasting wines, had suppliers from Argentina, Mendoza. We also had suppliers in France and Champagne. And I was kind of paid to build relationships. And that came really naturally to me. Like, I felt like I just got to go and make friends with people and take them out to do fun, bougie things, and had kind of a large expense account to wine and dine them. And it was really up my alley. The problem was there, you're always kind of running after the next milestone. And what I kind of realized is now, in retrospect, is I was placing a lot of my value on how much I produced. Every achievement sort of fed this quote unquote self-esteem that was non-existent. And I was numbing a lot. Like, I found the more I was kind of hustling, if I'm completely honest, the more I needed to self-medicate. And I was drinking a lot, a little bit of a recovering party girl, West Coast party girl. And so I decided, like, that was it. I needed to pack up and get out. And I decided to move to Mallorca, Spain. I had never been there. I didn't know the language. I knew like one word, like una más cerveza, por favor. It was pretty bleak. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. You know, I made it. I made it. But yeah, I moved there and then I started teaching English and that was really wonderful. Like, I have a fifth house stellium and I love kids and it was really fun for me to work in the public school systems there. I don't think that's something that you could ever find on a package tour. It's something that's just so authentic, so organic. And I really submersed myself in learning about, you know, the Castellano language, about the islands. The islands are so amazing. Like, they're in the Mediterranean. They're so beautiful. And it was a little bit of a retreat for me, which allowed me to kind of get clear on what's actually important. And it was around this time that I really started kind of leveraging or applying human design and astrology to my own life. I've always had this wisdom of astrology since I was like a kid. I mean, I don't ever remember a time where I didn't understand astrology, which is pretty wild. And that could be my second line. Like, we have that natural genius or things that come to us without a lot of effort, without having to study really hard. But I was in the closet with it, I think. And I didn't really take it that seriously because I thought people would think I was weird. And I decided that, I really decided to work with these systems. And I really began to go through this massive transformation, which is very true to being a Pluto and Scorpio rising. Like, I really started to shift, and change. And there was a lot of alchemy that happened. And I started to really kind of love myself again, which is wild. And that's when I decided to start Hatha Astro. I was like, I need to work with these tools. These are so helpful. And I'm just so passionate about the lifestyle that they can facilitate, right? One of minimum effort, maximum satisfaction. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. It took off pretty quickly.
I just think that that's the coolest story, that you didn't know the language. Like, that takes so much courage. You learned, because you're fluent now in the language, right?
Well, I can speak in present tense. It's pretty hard speaking in past tense. It's a hard language. I'm not giving myself a credit. Like, I know, like, I blow people away when they hear me speak Spanish, but I wouldn't say I'm like an expert, you know, but I've certainly come a long way and I should give myself a little bit more credit.
Totally. I'm like, yeah, you get street cred for literally, one, making the jump, the courage that it takes. And then also, just like, that's such an example of living in alignment and like really doing what you're supposed to do, because your business has grown immensely, is my understanding, and the people that you work with and those that you've impacted. I mean, it's a large audience. So yeah, I definitely feel like you should be giving yourself some more credit for that. And
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
kind of where it all started. So I'd be curious, like where your astrocartography lines are in Spain, and then I mean we can totally talk offline too. But I'd be curious where your south node is at as well.
Yeah, I don't know where my South is. I know that I have some massive Uranus. There's a lot of Uranus energy in Majorca where I was living. Now, the really cool thing about that is Aquarius is the fourth house of my natal chart. So the ruling planet is Uranus, and I happened to be on this Uranus line, and that was a total coincidence. There was also some Chiron crossings. There's a lot of my own, like I went through some periods of massive, kind of, there were some massive emotional releases that happened. So I was going through this period of really getting things out of the body that had become stuck and stagnant.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting with some of the Chiron energy that was there as well. But I also met my husband there, and now we own a home like in the Spanish Mediterranean. Like, pinch me, is this reality? So little bit of a zero to hero thing.
100%. And you did that using and leveraging your specific human design, which I think is a really good place to pivot and to really lean into that. So first of all, I'm so impressed by the work that you've done, and I admire your work, and I am a student of your work as well. And I'm definitely going to speak to that throughout the episode. But I wanted to ask, like, how you basically have come to work with human design and have created the branding business that you have, and how you support others through their work. And then I'm going to kind of go into a couple questions from there.
Sure. Sounds good. So, well, obviously coming into human design started in Spain. There's different, at the beginning, I was really focused on helping other people actually learn and integrate the system into their own lives and businesses to create minimum effort, maximum satisfaction, because I was really seeing through my own experience how there is really this disconnect, right? Where people are kind of in hustle and burnout mode. They're really disconnected from their true self and really leaning into the sophistication of simplification, working smarter rather than harder, ease over extraction. Like, it's not about doing more, being more. It's actually the opposite. It's about doing less with laser focused intention in really deep congruence with your true self, with your uniqueness, being unapologetically expressed in your strengths. And so that's where a lot of it started. But then what I realized is there was a lot of people who were creating these personal brands, these images in the online space of who they were based on what worked for somebody else. And what I call that is a not self brand. And when we're in the not self brand realm, there's what I call disjointed embodiment. So there's this kind of misfiring between who we actually are and what we're expressing. And that can ultimately impact how we're getting our message across, right? And the kinds of people that we're attracting and the virality behind our movement, right? Behind our core message. And this is when I started to kind of integrate some personal branding pieces into my product suite. I love it. Like, I have outer vision cognition. I have the channel perfected form. There's so many things in my design that actually point to somebody who has so much acumen for creative direction, like bringing things to life in a way that has tremendous emotional appeal. And that's been something that even right now I'm getting goosebumps because it just brings me so much generator satisfaction. Like, I just love making things beautiful based on people's human design and astrology.
I love that. So I guess preview, because yeah, I'm going to time it for like the first half of 2025, which I'm not in a rush for, but it's definitely happening. And it's something that I've learned working with you through the art of distinction. Yeah, the rebranding, and I think the rebranding is coming for me, but I also feel like I understand the importance of messaging through the branding much more deeply and differently, and I understand its impact through studying under you, because I think that's also how and I'm hoping I'm using like the right way of describing it here, the right words to describe this. It's like, it's really how you can get your message and your authenticity across, and like you can further live in alignment with the work that you're trying to do and share with the world. And honestly, kind of like the healing that I think like you can help others to like help others with, I guess. So in my mind, this made a lot more sense, but maybe it wasn't conveyed that way. But I guess this may be like me also picking up on the energy of where I see things going in 2025. And I guess I wanted to ask, what do you think like the future of branding using modalities like astrology and human design will look like, and how the landscape will look like with these modalities being applied?
I love that question. I think especially with Pluto's shift into Aquarius, we are moving into a new time where information is so readily available. And even with the likes of artificial intelligence, right? You can have anything that you need at your fingertips. And I think because of this, people are desiring more personalization. They're desiring more customization. And I think that's what's really going to be the differentiating factor in the online space for the people who are really making it and rising with these changes, and those that are kind of simply floating, right? And I think that the more that we can develop our own unique framework based on the strengths of our design, based on our true self, and really express that through the brand in the creative direction, but even in the brand's kind of core strategy, the more successful that we're going to be, period. I think that we're moving away from homogenization, and the more wildly, unapologetically express that you are in your uniqueness. Aquarius, right? The age of Aquarius, it's all about, innovation. It's about doing things differently. It's about being tuned into our own set of strengths. And I think that this is kind of the thing that's going to make or break it. And my prediction is the more that we're using our human design and astrology, which is the map of our differentiation, it is our unique cocktail of secret sauce, the thing that makes us us, right? Our unfair advantage, so to speak, the more that, the more impact we're going to be able to make.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of the things that I asked you, is like, what do you think the business landscape would look like if every single person actually applied their own unique secret sauce using human design?
Yeah, I think that the transformations would actually, because that's one thing that I like to look at, because brand is the creative direction. Brand is also the strategy behind it, but brand is the voice, right? It is your ability to be a voice and not an echo. And this is so important when we are really thinking about how we're facilitating client transformations, because this is also a piece of branding as well, the client experience, right? And so when we're using our uniqueness, when we're really leveraging that, we're going to be able to naturally help our clients achieve more of what they desire, because we're operating in our zone of genius.
Yes, I love this. All these words, it's like voice, zone of genius, and that's the beauty about these modalities, that it's like so specific to you because it's based on your birth information. And I have you ever read for twins? Do you know what that looks like for twins by any chance? That just came into my mind.
No, I haven't, but that would be cool though.
Right? I was just thinking, I was like, I wonder how that would apply to twins with respect to like human design, because like every soul is different, obviously, but I don't know, that just came into my orbit. Anyways, okay. Well, I actually love what you said about the whole Pluto moving into Aquarius, because recently I put in chat GPT something about astrology, and I was like, oh, this is so fucking surface level. I'm like, this is not accurate. This is not to the level where you could take it to. And I really feel like that is speaking to like where I think a lot can get lost in translation using these automation tools. And I think that's going to be a really interesting dance over the next 20 years. And I'm really curious as to what that's going to look like too. So
I am too. Yeah, I think people are just going to be craving less information. And so I'm not sure what that looks like when, in the online space, a lot of what we're doing is selling information. So my sense is people are going to want more like in-person experiences. This is one of the reasons why one of my core long-term containers, the Prodigy, we actually have an in-person retreat component, because I think that level of connection is just going to be needed. I think there's just going to be a desire for that, especially living in the technological age, right? Where we have become so glued to our phones and so disconnected. And that's my prediction. I don't know, right? Like, you never know exactly how it's going to pan out.
Totally. Yeah. I think there's so much wisdom in that. And I'm excited to see, I'm really excited to see like where things go. And actually, we'll definitely come back to the human design stuff, but because we're talking about the future, like what are your thoughts on the astrology for 2025? The way that I'm seeing it, if I might add, is that it kind of like the energy is going to be different, but it's energetically like on par with 2020 based off of like all of the outer transits that are happening. But I would love your take on it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the weirdest times of the century.
Okay.
Like, we have all the outer planets, and I think that this is important for anyone who's not super well versed in astrology. The outer planets are really slow moving, right? So unlike the moon, which changes signs, zodiac signs, every 2.5 days, there's this really kind of quick rapid fire pattern. These outer planets, they're like, it might take them 2, 10, Pluto, for example, 16, 20 years to go through one sign. So when they shift, we go through these massive collective changes, and we don't have just one outer planet shifting this year in 2025. We have all of them shifting. So I'm like, oh, what's going to happen? So I'm excited. I mean, I'm certainly just on the edge of my seat, wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's once in a lifetime astrology is what it is.
Yeah.
That's like what a time to be alive. Like we chose to be here at this time, so I think that's yeah, it's gonna be fun. It'll be fun to be like here, sitting here a year from now, and just reflecting back to see like all that 2025 was. And I haven't gone so far as to check the astrology of 2026, 2027, but I do know that those are equally energetically potent years. But can you speak to the paradigm shift that you mentioned a bit earlier in our episode together?
Yeah, for sure. I was just thinking as well, we should do another episode this time next year in
Right.
2025, and then
Yeah.
just reflect on everything. So 2027, from a human design perspective, basically in human design, we're collectively, there's transits within human design the same way that there is in astrology, and we kind of work on these incarnation crosses, right? And so for the last 400 years we've been working through one specific energy, and come 2027 we're moving into a new paradigm, basically, which is known as the solar plexus mutation, which I think is going to be a really, really fascinating time on Earth. I think people are realizing or waking up to this sort of mind body spirit connection. And I think a lot of people have talked about that for a long time. But I still think there's been this disconnect in really embodying what that means. And, just the mechanics of our emotions and how powerful they are. And when we kind of go through this mutation, we're going to be really stepping into a new way of being, right? This new awareness is going to develop on the planet, because the solar plexus, like the spleen center and the ajna center, these are awareness centers, right? So I think that we're really going to be in sort of a new sort of spirit consciousness, where a lot of people who might have been kind of more in the 3D mindset are going to be kind of waking up on the planet. So it's going to be an interesting time.
Totally. And I feel like we've kind of seen a little of that already start to happen with the whole waking up concept, especially since, the end of maybe 2019. And then like progressively each year, it's kind of like a little bit more and more of that. So I'm equally as curious to see like what that whole solar plexus focused energy is going to look like on planet Earth 2027 and beyond.
Yeah.
yeah, it feels like the aliens might come down, to be honest. I don't know. We'll stay tuned for that. I mean, they're probably already here in the ocean, but who really knows? So we have a couple of our audience members who are already followers of your work. And I was like, hey, like, would you be interested in me asking Kyla any specific questions? And they were very happy and immediate and quick to ask. So this is a direct question from one of our audience members. And they wanted to ask what you think, from your experience or maybe even observation, might be the biggest mistake business owners make when they start to scale, and how does human design support this? Or how can human design support this?
That's a great question.
Yeah, she's a background said audience member is a 3-5 projector. So
3-5 projector. Well, I think, as a 3 specifically in your human design, there is really allowing yourself to be experimental is so important in your scaling process, because you're really here to try things out, test them, kind of be the scientist behind them. So for you, as you're scaling, really focusing on beta rounds, right? Because we know as a 3-5, there's probably going to be a shift or a pivot in the dynamic. And so I think the more that you can kind of be loose and allow yourself to take the wisdom from each of these experiments and then really apply them to the next steps, that's going to be really, really lucrative for you. I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is following other people's strategies. That has to be one of the biggest problems I see in the online space. Like, what worked for one person won't necessarily work for you, right? And if you try to scale like them, you're going to end up with a business that you want to burn down, because it's right. Because
I love that. Yes.
Like it's true. And I think I've been there to a certain extent. There's things that I've learned through my own process that weren't necessarily congruent for me, energetically speaking. And, for instance, like when I first got into my business, I was really coached to get into this sort of launch, rinse, repeat cycle. The problem with that is I was in these feast and famine cycles constantly in my business. And I ended up not having the space to actually respond with my sacral. Like, if somebody was like, oh, you should create this thing, it was like I didn't actually have the capacity to do that, because I already had a launch planned 2 months from now. And that's where my energy was being channeled into. So I think the more that you're making decision, and this is so basic, but it all comes down to strategy and authority in human design. As long as you're making decisions in congruence with your strategy and authority, then you know that whatever you're doing is in alignment with your true self, right? So the more that you're doing that and being aware of where are these other undefined centers maybe hijacking my decision process, the better. Right? Like it's nuanced. And that's the thing, is for everybody, it's going to look so different. Right? I would say the number one thing is you want to really make sure you have your foundations right before you start scaling, because whatever problems you have at $25,000 months are only going to get worse at $50,000 months. They're only going to get bigger at 6-figure months. So it's really important that you're not scaling your problems. And I think that's why deconditioning is so important.
I think we could do a whole podcast on deconditioning and what that looks like and what that is. I have 2 more audience questions, but if you want to quickly speak to like the deconditioning and maybe like a brief overview, that would be so appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. So with deconditioning, like in our human design, there's centers within the human design chart, 9 centers. Those that are defined or consistent strengths within you, they're really how you activate other people. That's your true self. And then you have your undefined centers, and that is where you're more susceptible to outside influences. You're more vulnerable to your environment. It's where you take in, amplify, and often distort energy and reflect it back. And those undefined centers can be very loud. They want to make decisions for us, right? So deconditioning in human design is really the process of unbecoming what wasn't ever you to begin with. And that really is the foundation of this system. Like, the idea is that your true self is there. It's just buried beneath all of the conditioning. So from a business perspective, I'll just give you one quick example. If you have an undefined emotional solar plexus, you're somebody that your natural tendency is to avoid confrontation and truth. So you might be an individual that doesn't want to have hard conversations with your team members and can be a bit of a people pleaser with your clients. So what this means is you're leaking a lot of energy, right? So the more that you can kind of clean that up, right, and become aware of the hidden forces seething beneath your strategy, the more you're going to be able to scale and increase your bottom line in a way that feels really spacious and sustainable and easeful.
Totally. And I was just thinking, I was like, God, I'm like calling myself out, because one example is I have an undefined root in my human design. I'm a Sacral Generator 4/6 for anyone listening. And I, based off of conditioning, probably like inner child, and certainly ancestral, like I will work to the point where I like make myself sick, and it's not healthy. And that's definitely not living in alignment. So I want to echo that, why deconditioning is so important.
Yes, I feel you. I have an undefined root too, so I see you and I feel you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so second question from audience members. What is one piece of advice you could give to, like business piece of advice from a human design perspective that you would give to a generator and a manifesting generator?
One piece of advice for a generator and a manifesting generator? Mm-hmm. Prioritize pleasure. Prioritize satisfaction. And if you can create some kind of pleasure practice that you engage with daily, for example, every morning you love breath work, you get up and you do breath work and you have a cup of cacao and you have a shower and rub body oil or lotion into your, like, focus on the things that bring you so much satisfaction and pleasure and create some kind of ritual or routine out of that. And the more that you do that and you actually kind of anchor that felt sense into your body, the more you're going to know when things are inherently out of alignment for you. Everything in your business should be lighting you up. Yeah. The other thing I would say is don't plan too far in advance. You don't want to like plan your year out. You want to kind of give yourself a lot of space to be able to ebb and flow and let your body lead you.
I love that. That is medicine and wisdom for sure. Okay. So this is like one area I feel isn't maybe discussed as much within the world that is human design. But what do you think about the incarnation crosses?
Yeah, I think the incarnation crosses are, I mean, ultimately they are these 4 gates, right, that are really, really important. It's the gates of our conscious sun and unconscious sun, and our conscious earth and unconscious earth. And from a human design perspective, 70% of our expression takes place in our conscious sun. So that's a lot. Like 70% of our chart is expressed through that conscious sun gate. So I think that they're really important. And I think that this is something that really shows us the path that we're here to walk. It's kind of the pathway of our purpose, and it's the lessons that we're kind of really here to learn, the thing we're really here to master. It's our why. Like if there was one thing that really synthesized it all and brought it all together in your human design, it would be your cross.
Oof. Yeah, I feel like the incarnation cross is like the job description. Like,
yeah.
Not like what you're here to do, you know?
Totally. I completely agree with that. That's a really good way to put it. I think that's a really good way to explain it. That's just so simple and digestible and easy to understand. It is. It's kind of like the pathway. And then you look at your strategy and authority. That's a little bit like your compass. That's like your built-in GPS that's taking you along that pathway. And then your profile is like the way that you're expressing yourself as you fulfill your purpose. It's a kind of a wonderful way to describe it. I love that.
Yeah, I part of my eventual work with human design will be, I think, focusing on that area, because it's like, I don't know if there's as much discussed about it. That audience member question, guys, was definitely mine, just so everyone knows. um, but yeah, there's a lot there. So, yeah, I'm glad you also see it as like the job description. But um, okay, so if, and I don't know that I feel like I know the answer for this because I feel like this is a hard question, but you started off with astrology, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then you found your way to human design. So if you had to choose between astrology or human design, which would it be and why? If you could choose.
Oh,
Right? Hard.
hard question. So, okay, I love them both so much for totally different reasons. I think that astrology is a little bit more feminine and human design is a little bit more masculine. What I love about human design is there's this practical application. There's this way to actually embody everything that you learn. And that to me is a missing piece of astrology. I mean, it exists, but it's probably not as clear. And I think in terms of where I've had more of a transformation, and I love that, I'm here for that as a Scorpio rising conjunct Pluto, it would be through human design. Like I've had way more of a personal transfer. I've witnessed people go through massive transformations in human design with my own clients, like epic, unreal, mind bending, just total 360 in their life and business. I think that astrology gives us so much knowledge, and I really love how human design allows us to apply it. And I do believe that they're inextricably connected.
Totally. Totally. Do you think it's your Scorpio that really loves the transformation aspect of human design is why you lean into it?
Maybe that would probably make a heck of a lot of sense because I'm just here for that, right?
Yeah.
I'm here for like stripping back all the layers and like, I don't know, just like being that phoenix rising from the ashes and going through those periods of death and rebirth. Like, oh, give me all the identity crises.
I literally just posted on my Instagram stories the other day. It was because the Phoenix she actually holds she's my favorite X-Men character, and she holds a really special place in my heart because my uncle who passed, he was a comic book designer, and that was his favorite character. And I had literally just posted, I was like, what if I had a dark Phoenix moment and I went dark, right? Because I'm not a bad witch in any way or any capacity. But I was like, how fucking cool would it be just to like see that transformation and come back from it? Because I really feel like once you do lean into the transformation and you do acknowledge and appreciate the dark, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes if you're watching me on YouTube, you have a deeper capacity to hold space for others. And I feel like that allows you to take it to the next level within the business, and it can really expand those that you are, holding space for and working with. And I guess one of my final questions would be is what is your why? Like why this work for you in this lifetime, aside from your fifth house stellium, which is it in Capricorn?
Aries.
In Aries. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the why is like my why is minimum effort, maximum satisfaction. Like I know how devastating it is to kind of be in that dark night of your soul, rock bottom, living in ways that are really inauthentic and out of alignment. I have questioned it all, right? And been very, very sick, if I'm completely honest with you, and felt like there was no way out. And for me, just working with these tools has been so transformational, brought me back to myself. And I know that it can help so many people not only love who they are, but live in a way that brings them so much freedom, so much pleasure, so much satisfaction. Like, I truly believe that we get to, like, our life is a canvas, and you get to create whatever you want to create, and whatever you desire, you can have that. Like, you can have that. And I truly mean that. And I know that to be true because I'm living, breathing proof.
Yeah. 0 to hero example for sure. I mean, yeah, that's so beautiful. And I really want to also capitalize on where people can find you, where they can follow you on Instagram. You guys, you have to check out her Instagram page and also listen to her playlist and the music that she uses for her posts, because she has some of the best music that she's capturing on her posts than anyone else I've seen on the gram. So highly recommend.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that reflection. I put some time in there to kind of make it a little different.
You can tell.
Yeah. So you can find me at hatha.astro, which is my Instagram, at hatha.astro, HATHA.ASTRO. Wow, I can't spell. That's the best place to find me, is on the gram. And then there's a whole bunch of links there. We've got like freebies. We have like this free sustainable CEO. I can actually give you that. And if you want to link people to that. And that's a really good way to kind of get into my world and see my posts. I put lots of love into them, and you'll learn a lot about yourself just by, subscribing to my feed.
I also, yes, and I highly suggest that for anyone listening who feels called to check out Kyla and her work, and also getting on her email list, because I love the email list that you send out on the new moons and the full moons, and just whenever it is that you have something that you feel called to share, because the way that I'm reading it is you write them all yourselves, right? It sounds like it's very much your voice.
Yeah.
Good stuff, guys. Check her out for sure. And then I did also, so I've done Art of Distinction with you. And so I wanted to just have you quickly share if there are any programs that you recommend that are good places to start for our audience to check out.
Yeah, I think if you're like brand new to human design, which I don't know, I doubt probably if you're listening to this podcast that this is all new to you, but a really good just little starting place is the profile lines. This is something I just created recently. It's $44, and it's just a snack where you learn about the costume of your purpose, your unique way of showing up in the world. We really focus on brand visibility and content in that. So it's wonderful for you if you are a creative or entrepreneur, soulpreneur. It's also great if like you're not and you just want to learn a little bit about yourself, but those are the main things that we focus on. I think that's a really nice starting point. And then the Art of Distinction, obviously, as you know, is all things sort of branding, brand messaging, really working with your human design and astrology to create to anchor your unapologetic expression into a brand message that oozes seduction. So it's quite fun. Like, it's like, okay, here's all of these things that are uniquely you, and how can we really anchor that in and express that in a way that just resonates so deeply with your audience. So they're kind of low-key obsessed with you without being able to put their finger on why.
I love that. And I actually just sent the Pinterest board that we worked on, that you created for my rebrand that I'm working on, which is coming, guys. I promise. We're just kind of getting a couple things out of the way first, to my photographer. So I'm super excited for this next shoot.
I can't wait to see the shoot. I can't wait to see the shoot. That's my favorite thing, is seeing these things come to life. I actually have this vision of creating, I think I'm going to have creative direction packages. I just want to meet people in person, have this really fun VIP weekend, and then shoot together. I just think it would be so fun.
That is so on brand for everything that you've created in your world. So I love that for you. And I can't wait to see that come to life as well. But I forgot to ask you before we started recording if you happen to have a card deck. If not, I would be happy to do the card pull for us.
Yeah, I do have a card deck here. It's the Mirror Oracle that I got this in Edinburgh, Scotland, at this cool witchy store. It was straight out of, did you ever watch Are You Afraid of the Dark when you were a kid?
Oh my gosh. Didn't they have books that were, Are You Afraid of the Dark? I'm pretty sure they did. Yeah.
It reminded me of a store or something that you would see on Are You Afraid of the Dark? It was the coolest store I've ever been to. I had to wait for 2 hours in line to go in and buy stuff.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And so I bought this deck, the Mirror Oracle. So I'm going to pull a card.
Okay.
Do you want me to just like pull it and then say what it is?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. Let's see here. I want one to just pop out of the deck, you know?
Mm-hmm. It's the best.
Okay, so I got 2 cards popped out.
Ooh, okay.
One is Leo.
Leo?
Because there are some astrological signs here in it, along with some other non-astrological sign card. So this is all about elevating ourselves to our highest potential, and it reflects our need for recognition and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And radiating optimism and tenacity. That's what this card is all focused on, and it's so beautiful. And then the other card that popped out, I have to read it. It's talismans. I think I'm saying that correctly. Is that how you pronounce it? Talismans?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, it says, this card asks us to meditate on what people, objects, or beliefs we hold close to our hearts and seek out when we are in need. So this is associated with protection, but they're also symbols intended to convey very specific messages. What things do we pull toward us to provide us protection and comfort? What empowers us? Oh, I love that.
I love that because I'm just going to have, there's a lot there for me actually. So the tenacity aspect, I feel like you can really convey that through your specific branding using your human design and astrology once you really understand that and lean into it. And then with the whole meditation and protection for the second card, I'm just like, yeah, like branding can be protection of your energy, especially, and works with boundaries, which is how we started this episode, because it's almost kind of like a threshold for said audiences that to be accessible, but to not be too accessible for you really, and to protect your energy. So I feel like that totally hits.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm loving the Leo. Like, yes, I'm here for that.
It's funny. My sister and I, we're not really big fan of Leo men, but we love a good Leo woman, and it's probably because my Chiron's in Leo. But you know, that's a topic for a different day.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know what, Kyla, I had such a good time just chatting with you, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. And friends, spiritual Barbies, spiritual Kens, please go check out Kyla and her page, listen to her playlists, and check out all of her offerings and all the things. You will not regret it. Kyla, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Until next time, bye.